It's having an agenda meeting or something, I wasn't really sure.
It's like the Commons, nobody sits up front.
No.
Yep.
Like classroom.
We don't mind.
Okay, David, are we ready to go?
We are ready to go.
Okay, let's get going. Welcome back, everyone, on the internet, but also welcome back to everybody here. It's good to see a lot of your faces again. And I'm Mark Ben. This is Wayne Robertson, and this is Laurel Browning. We've all been part of this search to find a new superintendent. And tonight is our third and final candidate to meet the community and to answer the questions that were produced by the community. And we'll ask you to fill out your comment forms or your QR codes after we're done here tonight, and so the board can take a look at them. What the board will do tonight is reach consensus on a new superintendent, and they'll make that announcement after their executive session after the final interview tonight. So our next candidate is Nathan Plummer, and Nathan is the high school principal, one of the high school principals in the Marysville Pilchuck School District, and he's been here all day since 6:45 this morning, and he's still on top of things, which is pretty amazing. So let's welcome Nathan, and then we'll start asking you the questions. So Wayne, go ahead.
All right, good to see everybody. Thanks for coming out again. So Nathan, first question. Share a brief summary of your professional experiences that you believe have prepared you to be the next superintendent of the Sultan School District.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being out here tonight. It's good to see some familiar faces, and thanks for joining online. I would say, as many of you know, I was for nearly a decade, I ran this building. And when I first started in this role, in this building, we were not very popular in the community. And so we had to do a lot of work, and we had to do a lot of community connections. And in that time, over that course of that decade, we were able to change that perception, to create those connections, and to really create strong instructional environments to really help kids start to thrive and to feel good about being a student in Sultan. Along with that, I bargained with this district, with this current union, many contracts, one of which was a very difficult one, the McCleary decision. If you guys follow education, that was a big one. But we were able to negotiate salary contracts in that really helped to provide opportunity for us to be competitive as a district to a certain extent, to the best place possible, but also keep us solvent in those situations. And so also some PLC work. And so this building was the first building in the entire district to do a little case study and to read a book called Learning by Doing. And so we essentially started the PLC conversation, which is now something that the district has been investing in and going district-wide. And so that was a little bit of an instructional practice that went into that. And then I moved to a high school principal position. And so I got my doctorate, I got my superintendent credential. My youngest daughter, who's here, she was leaving. And so she was going to high school, and I just was feeling like I needed a challenge and something different. And so I definitely took a challenge. I'm a high school principal in the Marysville School District, as was said, but on the Tulalip Reservation. And so it's uniquely challenging to work on a reservation with a predominantly Native population, but it was quite literally considered by the tribe to be a school in crisis. And so in the short amount of time I've been there, we've been able to nearly double graduation rates, triple attendance rates, and also nearly double our enrollment. And we did that through policy work, through collaboration with the union, and also creating partnerships with the community. And so we had some pretty innovative programming. We also created partnerships with the State Board of Education. Joined a mastery-based collaborative statewide. And then we've also done lobbying, which we're watching a current bill 5198 that just got through the House for competency-based education to really create flexible and innovative learning spaces for students to get them out of the classroom and get them in with community mentors to be able to pursue different avenues and really create engaging and innovative ways for them to engage with school and make progress towards graduation. Of note, I had a kid flying airplanes to meet graduation requirements. It does help that he was a Toledo tribal member, so it helps cover some of those fees. But they're also engaging, they're working in their elementary school and they're giving back to their community. And so I think that with all of those pieces and bringing the partnership that I had with the district, right? Because I think some of the question that may exist is you're a high school principal. Okay, you ready for this? And really that policy work of looking how we can change systems, that advocacy work, that state networking work that we did to really create conditions that helped us in the midst of, I should also add, Marysville School District, if you haven't heard, is financially struggling, right? And so they're closing schools, they're consolidating schools, right? And in the midst of that, we doubled our enrollment and we're looking at moving into buildings that they're moving out of, right? And so in the midst of that, we found money where there wasn't money to be given. And then also lastly, just talking about those qualifications, the school is heavily subsidized by the tribe, and that's not a blank check, right? But Toledo Tribes is the second largest employer in Snohomish County, and they also have about $1 billion fund balance, right? Their contribution to our school is the only reason we exist, and every year, multiple times a year, I report to two boards. I report to the Toledo Tribal Board, where I find out at some point, I still haven't found out this year, whether or not they're going to renew the MOU. I'm sure they will because of the work that we're doing. And then I also report to the Marysville School District Board. So there is a lot of that community interaction. And really just lastly, I would say it's been an honor to be able to work in this community in the way that I have, because I'm helping to build community in a community where I don't necessarily belong, right? And so I've had to build a lot of trust. I will say confidently and hopefully not offensively that someone who looks like me isn't always at first trusted when I step on those lands, right? And so I've had to build that trust through an upfront wall. And I feel like it puts me in a really fantastic situation to be able to build that trust with the community that I already live in.
All right, thank you. Based on your research and the day you spent in our district, and maybe some other things that you know about the community, how would you address the 2 or 3 major challenges we face?
Well, I think that the first thing we got to do is we got to get on the same page, and we got to really figure out what it is that we need in order to support our students. I mean, I did spend a significant amount of time in the district today, and you know, I went out to Gold Bar Elementary, and I went, "Wow, you guys have a lot more portables than I remember." And then I went to Solton Elementary, and I said, "Well, I see them popping up when I drive to the high school, but you have a lot more portables than I remember." And then I get my tour of SHS and my tour guides say, "You know, we have more portable classrooms than we have actual classrooms in our high school," right? And so I think that we have a growing enrollment, and I think that how do we respond to that? We have buildings that are getting outdated. We have tried to run a bond that has been unsuccessful with 47% approval rate, which is about 13% shy of getting that support. So we really got to, I think, bring in all of your voices. I mean, you're showing up here, you're showing up there, 35 people there. And there are people who are vested in what is happening in our schools. And even further, people are vested in what the people that are coming to our schools and working in our schools. I see passion in there. And I see people that have committed nearly their entire professional career to this district and really have a vested interest to see it be successful. right? And then we have new people that are coming in and they're saying, where are the programs? Like, we just came from these things. How are we gonna offer those things? So I think the major challenge is one, how are we going to collectively come together and have a common vision for creating creating a package that or a plan, I should say, a plan would be a better word for that. How are we going to create a plan that's going to be able to address the needs of our students and their success? I think that also with that, I think there's a lot of I think at the high school level that we also need to make sure that we have adequate supports and planning in place. I think along with space, right? I really want to highlight something that I saw today, the CTE program. That's about as healthy as I've ever seen it, right? I mean, it is rocking, and they're running out of space, right? And I don't mean to say that this is a different one, but like, how are we creating options for our high school students to keep them engaged and keep them coming to the Sultan School District? And I would say lastly, I would say it's actually not my own, but it really kind of hit me about mid-morning. I was at the high school. I had a fantastic visit with my student tour guides. And I said, what is it that you hope for the district? And they said, we just want our kids. We want people to say, I'm proud of being in the Sultan School District, right? And that was coming from kids. And I think that within itself is where we need to leverage. We need to leverage our student voices. They have lived experience, and we really need to lean into that lived experience, and we need to elevate those voices because they're the ones who are living it, right? And they're the ones that we're investing in. They're the ones that you're showing up for. You're not showing up here for me, right? You're showing up here because you're concerned about your kids and the opportunities that they will have with whoever is you guys elect to appoint. So that's what we have to do. We have to come together, create a common vision that's going to be for kids, and then we got to involve kids in that piece, and we have to take the ownership of all of this and really bolster it to a collective ownership.
Got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Might want to
Squeeze them down. You got
a little bit, just
Thanks.
a little bit.
I'm a talker.
You're doing okay. How would others describe your leadership and communication style and skills?
Yeah, I mean, I think that transparent, open, and relational. That's sure enough. Just kidding. So, yeah.
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. You know, I really like to operate with transparency. A little bit, I'm a verbal processor. That could be a good and a bad thing. But you're always going to know what I'm thinking, right? And so, I'll let you know if I'm like, hold on, I'm just spitballing here. I think that transparency is critical, because what I really want you to do is know that I'm going to be upfront with you, and I'm not, unless of course it's confidential information and I can't share it, right? I mean, there are rules around those certain types of things, but we really I'm not trying to hide anything, right? Well, all I want to do is to be able to step into this role, this very challenging position with many of the hurdles that are being presented, and lean into this and be able to engage in two-way communication. So that transparency also comes with the ability to talk back and forth and to listen as much as I speak, if not more, right? And not to listen to respond, but listen to learn, right? And I think that's really what I need. I can say I was here for 9 years and I know everything. I do not. I can tell you the amount that has changed just by walking on this campus 3 years later is far different. And my experiences, albeit relatively short, have changed me as an individual and have changed the way that I approach the work. And so I would say that really just leaning into those things and really seeing people, finding strengths in those conversations, having that voice and being open and transparent. And that, I think that, here I go, I'm going too long. But I think all of these pieces are important because we need to be able to have conversations. We're not always going to agree, and we don't have to be angry when we don't agree, right? But we do need to have conversations that are real. And we need to surface those things, right? And so I think those are pieces that I will offer.
All right, thank you. Describe your approach to working with the school board, district and building leadership, labor group leadership, and the community stakeholders.
So I kind of prefaced that a little bit in my first question. I currently report to 2 boards, but also working with boards in first readings, second readings, policies and procedures, and then the tribal board for accountability purposes. MOU language, which memorandum of understanding, for those that don't know, is also an agreement that the Toledo Tribal Board has with the Marysville School District. So working with some of that language and making sure that we have these sound agreements of policy and procedures that help to shape learning with district leadership. I was reminiscing this morning. I was a principal mentor for the last 2 principals at Gold Bar. And currently have a student out of the University of Washington's Danforth Principal Leadership Program who will finish up a program and has been mentoring in my building as well. And so a principal development is something that I'm not foreign to, and I lean into that work. I think that when we talk about a team, like even leading teams in this district and creating collaboration and collaborative talks about bringing in focus to the work that we need to do. I was there. So I got boards, district leadership team, and stakeholders. Community stakeholders, I would say in this district, I worked pretty closely with Dave and we passed the tech levy, right? And so, also just being a middle school principal, having community meetings, being a high school principal, having community meetings and community connections, and really having an opportunity to build community, right? Our board president was one of the key people who ran our PTSA here at Sultan Middle School prior to all of taking over that piece. Was critical in that partnership. And so we got to find key stakeholders. We have people who want to invest in what we're doing, and we got to give them the opportunity and the ability to be a part of what we're building together.
Right, you kind of addressed this question earlier, but I'll give you a chance to maybe elaborate if you need to.
Okay.
If not, that's okay. How will you build trust and foster a collaborative environment among staff, district leadership, and the broader community?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first and foremost, I would say if you were to say, what's the first thing you need to do? We need to push a reset button. We need to reestablish a vision. Not because the vision we have isn't any good. It's just we need something new, right? We need something that we can all get behind, that we can rally behind, and that we can all really start to say, yeah, I can do that, right? And then we need to create a plan, right? And so I think. And I'm just elaborating on those pieces, that those are ways that we can start to build collaborative conversations that are aligned, right? And so that we're having conversations that lead to a specific outcome, that lead to some, and if we're having conversations that aren't fulfilling our vision, if we're having conversations that aren't fulfilling the plans that we come up with and the measurements that we have, then we need to not feed them, right? Because as old farming term, you fatten the pig you feed. Right. And so we need to really put our energy in the things that are going to help us achieve our vision and really align with the outcomes that we say, yep, this is important to us. This is how we're going to measure it. And then we measure it and we say, did we do it? Did we not do it? Right. Those are the pieces that we have to come back and create collaborative conversations around. And there has to be a collective efficacy around that, right? Like you have to come in and know that the work that you're doing is feeding that, and you have to feel good about it. And that's our teachers, that's our para staff, that's our bus drivers, that's our food staff, that's our community. When you drop your kids off at school or you are involved in it, that you feel like it's a good thing. Right. And we're not always going to get it right because things happen. It'd be a lot easier if kids were widgets, but they're not widgets, right? They're living, breathing human beings. And so those are all the pieces that I to elaborate upon, building communication, but also alignment with a common purpose and a common cause.
How will you include and involve students in your planning, decision-making, and leadership of the district?
I mean, I also alluded to that a little bit, but we got to center student voices. One of the most powerful, I'm saying that there are a lot of powerful moments today. It's hard to pick just one. I would say that like one that was really, really kind of like powerful for me, I hate to be redundant, was I was at the high school and they asked me a student voice question. Right, I'm going to get student voice in there, and I said, "Hey, I noticed that that you guys have just started a student voice thing on the board. Tell me how that's going." Right, and they told me about the process, and I said, "Oh, that's cool, but like, what are you guys talking about?" Right, and they're like, "Oh, well, you know, we're kind of like we're talking a lot about space, and you know, we're also going down to the elementary school." And we're talking to elementary students about that. I said, "Oh, what are you hearing from the elementary students?" And elementary students are saying, "We don't want to go to school in portable anymore," right? That voice needs to be heard, right? And so I would say getting student voice, like anything that we're going to rally, we need to elevate that voice, right? It can't be a bunch of adults in the back room making decisions and maybe not liking each other and pointing fingers as a way we can't do things, right? We need to really start involving the students that we are working with. Their voice matters, and they have a piece and a say.
All right. Describe your experiences with school finances, budget management, perhaps grant writing, and financial accountability.
So I've been a part of a budget making process. I have Title I, they call it categorical funding. So Title I LAP, high poverty LAP experience as receiving it, spending it, and being accountable for it, but also making sure that we're using it in the right way, which is also being accountable with it. We've also, wish I could see it.
Let me read that again.
Yeah.
Describe your experiences with school finances, budget management, grant writing, and financial accountability.
Yeah. But so I went talking about Marysville you know, they're essentially, if the Solon School District was in the same situation as the Marysville School District, we would essentially be the Monroe School District, okay, to draw parallels. But you can't tell 10,000 kids to go somewhere else. And so a lot of oversight has come into play. And it's heading in a better direction, right? So I'm not here to badmouth the district that I'm in. But essentially, that level of oversight creates very little budget to do anything. And I know that I said that the tribe heavily subsidizes the work that we do, but it's only in staff and it's not a blank checkbook. So with the partnerships that I told you about in the very first question, I've been able to take in about, I'd say $500,000 over the course of 3 years to build outdoor learning centers, put in welding stations, create a community garden. And so to be able to do all of the, get supplies and materials so students can create and engage in project work. And some of those things we qualify for and I have to fill out, and I got to Alliance with School Improvement, and a lot of it that I found through the partnerships that align with our goals. And so there are grants out there. We have to create those partnerships. One in particular is the Mastery-Based Learning Collaborative. We joined that cohort. That came with a significant amount of money that we were able to say, hey, let's think about education differently, and let's have some money behind how we can do that. So I have quite a bit of grant writing there. Also, partnership grant writing is sort of where you don't necessarily write the grant, but you work with corporations in order to write endorsements for the grant. And so that partnership work created an entire STEM program, including drones with Google, where they just sent us a bunch of robotics and drone stuff. Farmer Frog, which is a local farming agency that works with entities to run a garden. And so really just like, I can go on and on, but like working with entities to be able to write co-grants to be able to do it. And the accountability piece is, I mean, it's all over the place, right? As far as my experience with it, that sounds bad. It's all over the place. It is, my experience is vast. And so specific accounting for how this money directly aligns with school improvement plans. The results of the money that you spent, like reporting out Did it work? Did it not work? Are you spending the money where you said you were going to spend the money? And being able to show and prove those things. So I have quite a bit of experience in all this.
Thank you. How would you address the need for facilities improvements in our district? What experiences and successes have you had with supporting school levies and bond issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this district, right, I just kind of mentioned it, but I would say that I was actively on the committee that put technology in the hands of kids, right? And so that wasn't an isolated thing. That's not something that I specifically did, and that's not something that I can specifically do just by coming in. It's something that we have to do as a community, as a staff, and as students. And so with those pieces, I have also supported measures that have not passed in the Sultan School District over my tenure in that piece. And so I think that in any of it, and I actively supported the passage of the levy in Marysville after the double levy failure that essentially put them down that financial path. And so, really that levy work is being really clear on what it is that we need and bringing community voice into that space. And I think one of the things that the conversations that occur in the district that I am familiar with, as far as districts, the last one at least, I heard a lot of people say that I think that would have voted yes for a measure if it was the right one. Are you kidding me? In elementary school, have you seen our high school? Right. And then of course the other side of high school, yeah, we need a new high school, but have you seen our elementary schools? Right. And so like, how can we start to be creative about those things? And I think that's a critical conversation that we need to lean into. And I think that we can do it in ways that help us to figure out how we can support our community and not necessarily how the community can support us. And so I think that is a reciprocal relationship that we need to be able to establish in those measures. And when we do it the right way, I mean, you pass a tech levy and guess what? Kids have tech in their hands and it feels like you got something, right? And so I think that's a really big piece.
Okay, thank you. How would you address issues associated with morale, teacher and staff recruitment and retention?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I saw a lot of, I'll say emotionally, cuts. I saw a lot of cuts today, right? And cuts heal and scars fade. And so I think that we need to do some healing, right? We need to kind of talk about some things. I had some really hard questions for people that were like, how are you going to help us to feel valued as these people, right? And so we need to make sure that we understand the intricate relationship from everybody within the staff, that everybody plays in a crucial role. The moment that a kid steps on a bus, how is that bus driver feeling? Are they giving a smile to that kid so that when they get on and off the bus, then when they walk into the school, that they're greeted by a secretary who feels good about what they're doing and feels supported and gives them a smile? And then when they get to the classroom, greeted by a classroom teacher or a para that greets them at the door and says, hey, we're all here to do good things. And there's a value that comes into that. But that value isn't just about smiles, right? It's also about, we got to look at wages, right? We also have to look at budgets, right? And then those are all things that really, really stretch in these situations because the state is looking at a $12 to $15 billion deficit, right? And so we got some realities that are coming. The Department of Education is maybe dissolving, and are they sending money? Are they not? Like, we don't know. And so. But what I can say is that when we talk about morale, it's not about money. And sometimes that's the first thing that everybody says. It really is about collective efficacy. Do we have the opportunity that the work that I do I'm making a difference with the work that I do, and I feel good about what I'm doing. And if we can do that together as a staff and then have that recognition and celebrate like crazy the things that we do, and celebrate even crazier when as a community, when it happens, then I think we can build something special.
All right. Describe your experiences with special education services and inclusionary practices.
Well, I would say for a short stint, I was the interim special education director in the Sultan School District when there was a pinch. So I did that for a little while. And then I oddly enough ran inclusionary practices through the WASA grant in the Sultan School District but I don't know where that's at now. So as far as inclusionary practices go, we did a lot of here at the school prior to my departure, especially during COVID, with universal design for learning, right? And so really looking at ways that we can provide multiple options and multiple opportunities for students to be able to access learning, have some choice and say in there, and be able to level the playing field. We need to, when we talk about inclusion, it's like, how do we get a level playing field and we don't continue to marginalize? If you're in a remedial class, if you read at a first grade level, and I put you into a remedial class, and if you make 1 year growth, let's say you're a third grader and you read at a first grade level, and I put you in a remedial class, you make 1 year's growth in that year. By the time you become a fourth grader, you now read at a second grade level. So we haven't really closed any gaps, right? And so like, how are we bridging those gaps? And we're really looking critically at the things that we do in everyday classrooms, right? And so I think that's a change in practice. And so I have experience in working with that and working with those frameworks. Now, is that to say that the first thing we're going to do is UDL and inclusionary practices? I will not say that. We need inclusionary practices, so I'm also not saying that, right? And I don't mean to like stumble over my words, but I don't want to come off with a pretense that I have all of these preconceived notions as to what exactly needs to happen. I have ideas, but we need to really have a conversation. What do we need, right? Like, and we need to really kind of hear, and we need to do an internal audit to really say, what are the things that we need to fix, and then make decisions, not come in and just blasting, here are all the things we need to do.
All right, thank you. What experiences and ideas do you have regarding supporting school staff in dealing with student behavior management and related safety issues?
Yeah, I mean, we need to be able to, well, one, we got to keep kids safe, right? We need to keep kids safe from themselves and keep kids safe from each other. Principals need to be empowered to be able to do the work that principals need to do. And teachers need to be able to feel like they have the support they need in order to run safe and productive classrooms, right? But we also, there's a balance on that, right? Because we can't be too punitive because we won't teach, right? And then also I'm a huge believer in restorative practices, right? And so we do need to hold kids accountable when there is a behavior issue. Like those things need to happen. Is it always like this many days and this many days? Like fixes things? No. What really fixes things is that we learn from our mistakes, right? And I think the biggest thing with behavior that I've always noticed is if a kid can't read, you give them reading intervention. If they can't do math, you give them math intervention. If they don't know how to behave, we kick them out of school and tell them they're bad, right? And so we have to teach, right? We have to teach because behavior is learning. Right? We've all been in situations where you're like, whoop, shouldn't have done that, right? And so we have to be able to look at everything as a learning opportunity. And when we can do that as a collective organization, we can grow behavioral management and those skills. We can build those social skills, and we can also close the gap in those other academic areas.
All right. How might you expand and support CTE programs in our district? How have you done so in the past?
Well, I would say, and a perfect example here is before it was kind of like a everyday practice, we brought CTE programs here. We had Project Lead the Way. We brought a robotics program to the school. We used CTE funding. And then we were like, let's expand that. We actually brought a home ec classroom years ago, and we used CTE funding. And then the legislature said, whoa. We're only giving CTE money to middle school, CTE money to middle schools for STEM related things. So we had to bail out of the whole. It's kind of a bummer. But and so bringing those pieces in, writing those frameworks, and so that's my direct experience with it. Also, in the Marysville School District, in our innovative programming, we actually created a partnership with the Tulalip Bay Fire Department. And we got essentially have an instructor working with the Tulalip Bay Fire Department, CTE certified, and now students that come from Marysville Pilchuck and Marysville Getchell to our program on the reservation, working with the Toledo Bay Fire. So two programs that are created in two different contexts. CT is fantastic. Like, we need to figure out ways to expand it. We need to figure out ways that we can provide pathways for students, and we can also look at expanding work study. CTE provides us with an opportunity to keep kids, right? And that is critically important for funding.
So I've got two more questions,
Yep.
and then we're gonna let the audience
Great.
have a shot at it. So kind of quickly, how will you support student activities and community events as our new superintendent?
I mean, I think you gotta show up, right? You gotta be there. And you have to, also not only just show up, but you also, you gotta like kind of put the money where the mouth is, or putting systems behind those places, or how can we support the things that kids are doing. And let's be honest, like when sports are rocking, when activities and clubs are killing it, things are good. They really are. And when they're not, things can be rough, right? And that's real. The school I'm in right now, you know, after tonight, I'll be in Spokane in the morning. We're ranked 6th in the state, and community pride has never been higher, right? So says one of the tribal board members, right? And so, but we built that, right? And all the things that we did. There were no sports when I started there. So I think that athletics and activities, not just athletics, but activities provide really positive connections for kids. I'll tell you point blank, I learned more about life after 3 o'clock, about myself, about how to work hard after the school bell, who I was and how to persevere in after school athletics than I ever did in the classroom, right? But I learned a lot in the classroom too, right? And so I think that they're critically important, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure that they're available for kids.
All right. Describe your first 90 days in the district as our next superintendent.
Yeah, I think the first thing we do is start to create those connections that I'm talking about, right? What are those key conversations? And then we need to push a big fat reset button on that vision. And we need to figure out, myself in collaboration with the board, how to really get that voice out. We need to start hearing from all factions so that we can really use the information in the voice to create that vision. From that vision, like, okay, can we vet it? Can we get behind it? Can we get some energy behind it? We're going to make a strategic plan, right? And so that strategic plan needs to have focus. It can't be too big, right? And it needs to, and in that focus, it also has to have measurable outcomes, right? And so how are we going to measure the steps that we have set that are going to feed our vision, right? And so then once we have those pieces, we bring it and we start looking at school improvement plans. And those school improvement plans, right, we need to see, I keep saying right, so I apologize, I must be getting tired. We need to make that through line from what's happening in schools to be able to support that vision, right? So I would say in the 90 days, we're really looking at that school improvement process. And then we're vetting those things, and we're being public about them, and we're getting feedback from community, and then we're figuring out ways that we can start to create feedback forums with the board and myself to be able to really start engaging in two-way communication. We need to begin healing. We need to begin critically looking at the needs of this district. Our kids desperately need more than they have.
All right. Questions from the audience? Here we go.
So you talked a lot about your plans for the upper grades, you know, so from probably 7th on up.
Sure.
But you didn't really say much about the elementary. And so I'm wondering, you know, what are your ideals pertaining to elementary and specifically early education?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you bringing it up. So I think when we look at like the developmental developmental preschool and the transitional kindergarten, I think that there are ways that we could find connections with potential like building type options. But let me just go ahead here. There's no daycare in this area, Sky Valley, right? There's no place to take kids, right? And so like when we look at that, we need to really start answering some of those critical questions, and that could be critical in making sure that literacy, foundational literacy, is happening. We need to make sure that we're looking closely at what we're teaching in each of our elementary classrooms, right? We need to make sure that we're bringing approaches that aren't damaging. And not that things are damaging, but we just need to look critically at what's being taught in those spaces. We to be quite frank, we have some high performance happening in one of them, and we have rising performance in another. And so I think that when we look at it, I don't want to say that we're not going to do anything. We need to make, like, space is their biggest issue at this particular moment. And I think that there are a ton of great things that are going on. They just have they have brand new curriculum adoption in mathematics, and really they have some pretty sound structures around reading interventions. And so I think just making sure that we're getting into classrooms, seeing what's happened with instruction, seeing how teachers are interacting with students, seeing the differences that they're making. And then making slight tweaks from there, right? And we need to make sure that any kid coming out of any one of our elementary schools are directly supporting what's happening in our middle school.
Other questions from the audience, from the attendees? There you go.
Back to behavior. I'm wondering, I'm not particularly fond of the PBIS program, and I've been subbing in the district for like 15 years, and I'm not now, but I would have kids that literally, we had to clear the room for them, and then back they came. Or they came back to us with a piece of candy or something. And to me, that wasn't teaching the child how to behave. It was like, hey, I'm gonna get a piece of candy. So how would you feel about a behavior classroom?
Oh.
And relate to
All right, this is the most interesting community forum ever done.
My daughter's like, morning, your daughter's calling.
That's really funny. So it's hard to speak to, like, PBIS is a proven strategy that really helps to outline the behaviors that we want to see, right? PBIS is not about giving candy, right? It's right, and quite frankly, it's not about token reward systems. Token reward systems only work with students who typically fall in the category of behavioral needs, right? And so there's a lot of research behind there that we need to be really. Alfie Kohn wrote a great book, Punishment by Reward. And so, like, this idea that these external factors are going to change behaviors don't actually have lasting effects. But PBIS isn't about just giving tokens and creating like oh, you did good, way to go, and that's almost like dog trick, right? And so what we want to do is we want students to know what the expected behaviors are. And I'm going to go back to when a kid doesn't know how to read, we teach them how to read. When they know how to write, we teach them how to write, right? When they don't know how to act, we kick them out of school. And so if we don't set the parameters of the behaviors that we expect and the behaviors that we want to see, then we're not doing our job. Now, the next thing I would say to that isn't necessarily a jump to behavior programs. Behavior programs are extremely cost prohibitive, but I'm not saying no, right? You also have to do the need, right? And we can't just say we have a behavior program, so like we need to let's find all the behavior kids, and do we have enough behavior kids? Well, we don't have enough, so maybe we can qualify some of these behavior kids. Because when you go the behavior kid route, what you're really saying is we're going to access special education. And when you're looking at a district that at this size, my concern is that we start to predetermine who should be in the behavior program. And we really need special education programming that's going to meet the kids where they're at and the needs that they have based on their individual disabilities.
All right, another question?
Nathan, how are you going to, or I guess, what would be a way or maybe a couple steps that you would help get the community involved? And I'll just speak from my personal experience. It seems, I mean, this is a blue collar working community where most people are working all the time.
Absolutely.
Probably 2 income earners in the house. People are tired, gotta get home, got kids going to sports, dinner, all those priorities that have to happen. And, you know, community involvement in things like the parent teacher advisory board or things are scarce. I mean, even the Turk fan club struggling to get involvement from the community. Nobody shows up unless there's a problem. As soon as that problem is fixed, then everybody disappears.
Right.
How are you going to bridge that gap in a community that frankly, I think a lot of the community has felt unheard or undervalued by the community or by the district, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you answered the question, and that at least that's what I was thinking, right? At the very end, so you have community that feels unheard by the district, right? And so now there's a kind of a delicate balance in there, right? Because sometimes it's did you hear me and do what I said? If you don't do what I say, then you didn't hear me, right? And then there's I genuinely heard you. Here's what we can do about it. It's not always may not be the exact thing that wants to be said, but we felt heard. And when I talk about community healing, that's what I talk about. We need the opportunity to really say, like, you know, let's get it on the table. It might be ugly. It'll be my office, right? If we need to freaking have it out, let's have it out, right? But we can do it in a respectful way. And we really need to start talking about what are the things that we need to address. What I do know is that people will show up if they feel like it's something we're showing up for, right? If they have that capacity and time. And so there's a cornhole league that happens out in startup. And all of those individuals, hardworking, you know, a lot of them come from 2 income, and they show up every Wednesday and they play cornhole out there because it's a place, I mean, it's fun. Right, it's low key, and it's got good music, right? But they show up because it's something that they want, that gives them joy, right? So how do we create situations and opportunities that can give our community joy and giving back to our students at sporting events or in the classroom or whatever that may be, in advocating on committees and so on and so forth. So that's we got to start with conversation, right? And we got to create that open community, that open opportunity to really kind of talk about what have you felt unheard about, right? Yeah.
All right, kind of out of time. You want to take 1 minute and give a little closing piece, maybe thank these people for their time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been when I was in 4th grade, I wanted to be a teacher, right? And when you think about it, like it was like, you want to be a teacher, you sure? How do you know, right? And throughout my entire life since I was in 4th grade, I have done everything to achieve that goal. As a 14-year-old, I took care of 7 and 8-year-olds at summer camps, and I have continually gone down that path. And I always went down the path of, if I could just change one kid's life, then I would do it. I would be okay, and I've met that goal. And then you change one kid's life and you're like, okay, I need another, right? And you kind of get this idea that like, we want to make a difference. And so as you start to be able to create those relationships as a classroom level, as a coach, I mean, I've coached a lot of sports over a lot of time, right? You start to see that, wow, a difference can be made by what happens in the classroom, what happens on the field, what happens on, I was a wrestler, so I didn't do the court. So what happens on the mat, right? And that grew. And then the amount of time, well, I want to be an administrator, right? Because now I can have that opportunity to make that next level of change. And I can help to influence the next person that influences the next person that makes the difference, and be able to find that. And then the next level right here, the opportunity for me to actually come back home in the community that I have gone through. My daughter, I mean, my wife is here and my daughter is here, and we're in this really interesting place in life, right? Where we have one student who's out at the University of Washington, product of the Sultan School District, wants to be a doctor, a real one, not like her dad, right? And another one who also does a host of program, but she says, That's cool, right? Right? But like, she's gonna be gone soon. She's a junior, right? And so this is an opportunity for me to come back to a community that I poured so much into, come back home and really see we're using the community connections or the skills to build the community connections that I have in the community that's not my own, for the community that I serve now in Tulalip, for them to say, we have our students coming back home, when I talk about our doubled enrollment, right? We build community schools in a community that's not mine. It makes me want to come and build community schools in a community that is mine. So that's why I'm back. And I appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you.
Rick, okay, well, you mentioned you're a coach.
Yeah.
How do you feel personally about biological males playing on girls' teams?
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now.
It is.
Right? Yeah, it definitely is. And I think the way that I would answer it is there's how I feel about it, right? And then there's what is put in law, right? And so what I know is that we don't get to pick and choose what kids come into our district. We don't get to pick and choose the issues that they bring, the traumas that they bring. We don't get to pick and choose those things, right? But what we do get to pick and choose is how we respond and how we uplift. And so what I know is that those are a case by case basis, right? And that there is laws in place, right? How I personally feel about it is not relevant. It really isn't.
So those laws change, you support the law.
We support the law.
We gotta move on. Thank you though.
Thank you so much.
So let's get around. Thank you very much. Many of you have been involved in this process since last fall. On behalf of the board and Northwest leadership, we really appreciate it. And we really value and need your input, and it has to happen pretty quickly. Because the board's gonna be deliberating after about an hour of interview with Nathan.